Hey everyone, my name is Steven and welcome to Storytime. Today, we're going to be reading some r/malicious compliance stories. And quickly before this video starts, I just want to say about 60% of people who watch this video aren't currently subscribed. So if you lovely person, enjoy these videos, please make sure to subscribe so you'll never miss an upcoming one. With that being said, let's get into the stories. Hassle me with an obnoxious annual prior authorization for my cheap lifelong medication? Thank you for the treatment upgrade. I have been with the same employer and insurer taking a controlled substance medication for several years to manage symptoms from an incurable illness. After an initial prior authorization several years ago, my insurer now requires annual prior authorizations to improve my care, BS, and reduce their costs. I complained and got this quote. Our bodies are dynamic, and as such, it is beneficial to reevaluate therapies every 1 to 2 years. Describing their poopy process would be an even greater wall of text. Summary, this wouldn't be a big deal except for ye old ancient fax processing and their inflexible policies resulting in the delay of my treatment. I did everything I could, but they hassled me several times about my family doctor not participating in their electronic system. I'm sure every insurer has their own e-system, but that same fax machine works for all of them. Complaints through my very large employer's HR got me a dead end with non-answers. Now I get to do this every year. Simply prodding my doctor to jump through these hoops annually only serves to delay my care. Let's instead follow the spirit of their process and improve my care. I'm paying extra for the PPO health plan and usually exceed the family maximum out of pocket per year. This means I hit my cap faster and won't end up paying any extra. Let's get started. I feel better already. Instead of 7 years of family doctor visits every 6 months to renew my hard copy only controlled substance prescription, I'm now going back to a neurologist for the specialized care my condition requires. I'm not a monster, so I'm not seeking a doctor that uses fax instead of their electronic authorization. I just don't care how they do it. I still need to see my family doctor just as often for my annual physical and other needs. Yes, I agree that my body is dynamic and I have not had a multiple sleep latency test for many years to determine how my illness has changed over the years. I will check to see when I'm eligible for another test each time I have to hassle my doctor to do the prior authorization forms. My dynamic body has built a tolerance to the stimulant I have been taking for many years. I have been feeling more tired lately despite taking my medication. It is time to try something new. This new medication likely will not have a generic equivalent. There are only so many prescriptions to try before you have to use meth. Unfortunately, the insurer is incapable of learning that they should have left me the F alone. I'm getting something for delayed treatment, time, and hassle. If you have an incurable illness, how many times do you have to prove that you have this illness before you don't have to again? That's just so unnecessary and demoralizing to have to do every year an authorization so they can improve your care and lower their costs. Good on OP for doing what's best for them. Oh, I'll dig your trench for you, sir. No problem. A guy I served with was on infantry exercise with this well-known total douche of an officer. No one liked this guy, for several good reasons, including that he had complete little big man syndrome. He had been giving them grief the whole time. They really did not like this guy. Officers need to be able to lead the mission, but also look after their soldiers. A bad officer can make things pretty miserable. Now, the guy was pretty short, around 5'6" or so, but it is not a big deal as long as you do your job, which this guy also sucked at. Anyway, he had to go off to O group and he threw a shovel at one of his soldiers and said, "Dig my trench for me," and left. Okay, fine. The guy was a monster, about 6'5" or so, and he dug a trench. He dug one so deep that the other guys had to help him out when it was done. Late that night, the O group is done and the little officer is on his way back. Everyone is on the defensive and being quiet and tactical, so he creeps up and asks where his trench is. They point out the glow sticks that are marking the spot. The guy carefully heads over and hops in. Whoosh! Gone. He can't yell for help, since they are on defensive and being quiet. He can't climb out very well, especially in the dark. He could not do anything except wait for morning, when they were allowed to stand down and the guys came to pull him out. Apparently, he did a better job looking after his troops after that. If you're gonna treat the people underneath you badly, the people underneath you are probably going to also treat you badly. This sounds like a pretty fun story for the troops to experience and a good learning lesson for that officer. Why my wife doesn't ask me to read her bedtime stories anymore. So I wake up very early in the morning, around 3 a.m. to go to work. Naturally, I spend a lot of my weekends catching up on all the sleep that I miss. One night, my wife woke me up at about 11 p.m. on a Saturday night, asking me to read her a bedtime story. Now, at first, I got really annoyed because I was sleeping like the dead before she shook me awake. But rather than get angry or say no, I just said, okay, and went to our library. I'm a big Warhammer 40k fan, with the Space Wolves, or The Route to Anyone in the Know, is my favorite Space Marine chapter. I decided to pull out Prospero Burns by Dan Abnett and read it to my wife. I got about 3 very gory, very descriptive pages in before she said, "I'm sorry, I will never wake you up again, please stop reading." I said, "Great," and immediately went back to sleep. She hasn't asked me since. That's a pretty funny story, and probably a pretty good story for any Warhammer 40k fans out there. I can feel for OP in this situation because I think mostly anybody can also recognize when you're sleep deprived like that and you're getting some valuable sleep, the last thing you want to do is get up and do something kind of menial for really no necessary reason. But overall, it was just a kind of funny story. You can't go into the player's gym without the pass. Sure thing, boss. I used to work in a big cricket stadium in Australia, WACA for people who know it. I was a runner/porter. We basically run supplies like drinks, foods, plates, basically anything that is needed somewhere from storerooms, kitchens, etc. So I was working in 40 Celsius degree heat, 104 Fahrenheit, on a 5-day match, and my boss comes on the radio and tells me to take 10 bags of ice and deliver it to the player's gym. I walked all the way to the other end, load up my trolley with 10 bags of ice, and headed to the gym. You need a pass to go anywhere in the stadium. Different passes give you access to different areas. However, as runners, we don't get them, and it is generally understood when they see us with black uniforms and big stacks of whatever stuff we are carrying, they would let us in. Anywhere in the stadium. I roll up to the gym and the security guard asks for my pass to enter. I told him I don't have one and no one asks for passes from us, and the big boss asked me to take them in and he can confirm it with him. He tells me no, under any circumstances he can't let me in. And the best part is I just have to walk 5 feet in just to put the bags down. I tell him, okay, I am not going to take the bags all the way back, so I will leave it here. And unloaded all 10 bags in front of him and left it there. Called my boss and tell him what happened, and he said he will take care of it. Anyhow, with all the things going on, he forgot and players are getting ready to start after the lunch, and he called me back to ask about the ice 30 minutes later. I reminded him and he was angry as freak and asked me to come back to the gym. I went there and my boss and the security's boss were there already berating the guard. And when I walked in, asked me to take the ice in, and I walked 5 feet in, dumped the ice in the buckets, and left. This is really a tough situation because the security guard is there to make sure that nobody irresponsible gets in, and there's just a unwritten rule to let employees in with uniforms. There apparently is no set process to actually approve anybody to go in, so the security guard was just trying to do his job. We don't have the privilege of knowing what training or what was said to him or any of the processes like that, so we can't really blame the security guard too much for the situation. It's more security as a whole in my opinion, and that's where the fault lies, because they need to have some kind of process that allows employees to get in when they need to get in. You won't let me out? Suffer the consequences. This story belongs to my dog Gizmo and told from his point of view. I was sitting next to the humans as they were staring at the cube thing that shows shapes and colors again, when the urge to relieve myself came upon me. I walked to the back door and politely let them know I need to go, by barking of course. They, in return, cruelly refused to let me out, as sometimes I asked to go out for no reason, just to mess with them. So I did the only thing I could to let them know I will not stand for such behavior, and pooped right there on the floor under the dining room table, while maintaining eye contact the whole time. Alright, Gizmo, I get it. It's a tough situation because the dog wants out a lot of times for relatively no reason at all, just to go out, just to sniff stuff. Sometimes you may take that for granted and you may assume that they just want out for no reason, and you might not want to get up, let them out or whatever. Didn't work out so much this time, and Gizmo let them know. It's not Gizmo's fault, Gizmo's a good dog. Mom told me not to complain, so I didn't. So back when I was little, my mom would fill the bath for me, and I would always say that it was too hot. She would tell me not to complain and just sit down. And most of the time she was always right, and I'd get used to it. Most of the time. This was when I was around 4. My mom made the bath for me, but this time it was a lot hotter than it usually was. I told my mom it was too hot. Don't complain, just sit down. So I do. My mom left the room and I was just sitting there waiting to get used to the water. So about 10 minutes passed, my mom came back in to check on me. My entire head was covered in sweat. It was just seeping out of my pores. As soon as my mom saw me, she ran to the faucet and turned on the cold water. She cupped her hand under it and began throwing the water at my face, which instantly cooled me down. After that, until I got old enough to take baths on my own, she began asking me if the water was too hot. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm no expert in parenting, and I'm no expert in giving children baths, but I think if they complain that it's too hot, I would suggest maybe trying to accommodate it and cooling it down usually instead of forcing them to sit in it. I know they'll probably get used to it most times, but people have different preferences, I would think, and if something's uncomfortable to them, you might want to try and see if that's something you could fix. But again, I'm no expert, so I could be really wrong on it, I don't know. Multiple compliances are going to bring this place down. 1. Scrub vehicle after pressing send to save time. Work at a car wash with a tunnel where I load cars onto a track, then press a button to send cars through tunnel. Required to scrub rear vehicle with brush because tunnel doesn't clean the rear. To save time, I was told to press send to send the car through the tunnel, and as the vehicle is moving, walk behind it to scrub. Problem is, some cars are dirty as heck. I'm not quick enough to get all the corners and under lips to get all the dirt. So instead of doing it the way the boss told me to, I clean the rear then press the send button. A little slower but better customer service. Boss got on to me twice about doing it this way. So what do I do even though it's bad service and there's been a dramatic decrease in vehicles coming in? Press send and try to get all dirt, usually leaving skid marks here and there causing me to have to rewash. Send the car back through the tunnel. Wasting time, materials, and money. 2. Don't power wash bay anymore. There's 4 bays for people to use washing vehicles. If a bunch of mud is on the bay floor, I clean it or vehicles won't use it. Well, boss seen me spraying out bay and told me to stop. Today a vehicle came in and left mud all over. Didn't clean it. When the rush came, all bays were being used except that one. 3. Cut me off and didn't let me explain why a vacuum wasn't working. One of the vacuums is clogged up. Has been for days. The clog is somewhere near the back end. I tried to unclog it, but because I didn't have the right tool, wasn't able to. Boss finds it, sees it's clogged at the front end, which is usual, then confronts me.
When's the last time you checked the vacuums?
Me trying to remember. Not sure, it's been...
You need to check it every hour. Come look at this. One of the vacuums is clogged.
Me following him to the vacuum, trying to explain what happened. If it's the middle vacuum, it's clogged in the back. I need a clamp to...
No, come look at this.
Shows me the front end of the vacuum and I see trash. Yes sir, I still need a clamp to take the...
No you don't, just pull that junk out and make sure to check it often.
Yes sir, boss. Proceeds to unclog front end as boss leaves without giving me a chance to explain. Back end is still clogged and barely pulls any air. It's been going on 4 days now. What a terrible boss. That place is going right into the ground for sure. Trying to cut corners here and there, not maintaining the equipment well. People are going to stop showing up, and the new people who do show up aren't going to be returning customers. At least, OP gets a paycheck at the end of the day. That's like the one solace they can get from this. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to and watching the Storytime channel. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing and let us know what you thought about these stories in the comments below. Thank you all again for watching and listening to the Storytime channel.